I mentioned this at the top of the show. It's a very worrying comparison to make where South Africa as a country is in danger of becoming a mecca for global kidnappers. That's according to Ian Cameron from the Civil Rights Organisation, well, also according to the crime stats that have come out as well. Let's take a look at some of the areas that are most affected. I see Vosloorus, Johannesburg Central and Tembisa. Well, let's bring in Ian Cameron now, Action Society Director of Community Safety. Ian Cameron joining us this morning. Ian, good to have you on the show. Appreciate the time. Let's first of all just look at the numbers if we can. When I say we're in danger of becoming a kidnapping mecca, where did you get that from? Talk to me about numbers.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you very much. So in October of this year, it was released that we've got about 1,000 kidnappings per month in South Africa at the moment, which is a massive increase. So it went from about just over 800 in 2021, let's say 2020-2021 financial year, to over 1,000 cases per month in 2022. Now, the drastic increase actually started in mid-2020. And obviously, if we look at South Africa's score in terms of the global initiative against transnational organized crime, sorry, it's a mouthful, South Africa is becoming a world leader in organized crime as well. In terms of our, or the last global organized crime survey that was done, we are in the top 20 best organized crime, or rather top performing organized crime countries in the world.
Yeah, it's not the sort of title that I think any country wants to have as well. Is there any thoughts then from Action Society, Ian, as to why we have seen this sudden spike? What do you think's happened?
Yeah, look, it's important to look at research as well. So if we consider the research done by the Institute for Security Studies and specifically a piece that Relesed Lancaster wrote recently, it showed that less than 5% of kidnappings in South Africa are ransom related, which leads us to the thought that very often when people are hijacked or something else may happen to them, another type of crime, they are taken along as victims by the suspects that are involved in the crime. It's also important to say that in many cases, kidnappings aren't reported as they should be because of fear that something may happen to the victim and also the lost faith in the South African Police Service. Now, recently I heard one of the provincial commissioners saying, let us do our jobs, but unfortunately they don't always perform very well. It's only in the Western Cape that there is a proper kidnapping task team that works in collaboration with the City of Cape Town and Western Cape government. That seems to be a good step in the right direction.
I was about to ask you about the kidnapping task team because we've covered that here on ENCA before and they are getting a lot of credit for how it's being done. Why is it so difficult, in your opinion, to have this rolled out to the upper echelons of specialized policing in our country? We can't expect the men in blue on the ground every day to be able to handle kidnappings. It's a more specialized task team. Why do you think it's so difficult to roll this out countrywide?
Yeah, look, it's rather a matter of why it's difficult to roll out specialized units in the South African Police Service in general. You know, unfortunately, the South African Police Service, in my opinion, and in terms of management, has really been, let's call it, captured by criminal elements and criminal influence. And then obviously, if you hear dogs or kids in the background, definitely mine. So it's definitely been captured. 1, 2, there's a massive political influence in the South African Police Service, which obviously has put a lot of pressure on getting the job done on the ground. It's like with the new appointment of the crime intelligence boss, General Kumalu. Not necessarily a bad person, but I doubt that he'll really be able to dig deep and get things done. I think political influence is just too rife in the South African Police Service at the moment.
And just as I start saying goodbye to you, Ian, obviously, sadly, a very similar discussion when it comes to crime, that the police service are under-resourced, they're under-trained, they're under-specialized. As I say goodbye to you, what is South Africa supposed to do with what you and I are talking about? So we've thrown out some very worrying numbers of kidnappings. We're being compared to Mexico. What do we do with this as a country? What's the takeaway from this?
Sure. Yeah. It's definitely not an easy task. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. The only way that I see it changing is that there must be national change in terms of not only political but also police leadership. If that doesn't change, I can't see it really changing on ground level. And this is what cops on ground level will tell you too. There are thousands of incredible people still wearing the uniform. They want to work, but they all tell you that their leadership is lacking.
Now, how much of a problem is the top brass at the SAPS as far as crime stats and the reason crime's getting worse in our country? How much are they to blame for? Ian Cameron, I appreciate your time. Action Society's Director of Community Safety, Ian Cameron, joining us here on ENCA.